Oh man, how lucky are we? It's your boy Gabe Patillo with Married to the Games. You know, I got to talk to Troy Baker and I was praying that I would get like 20 minutes with him. Maybe 30 minutes if I'm super lucky. Almost an hour and a half later, y'all. Oh, this was a talk we had. You know Troy from BioShock Infinite, The Last of Us, Uncharted 4, almost every character in Batman. What you might not know is that he's got a music side and he's a brand new dad. Here's my talk with Troy Baker.
I've been digging my heels in, digging my heels in, digging my heels in this common ground. And I'm planting my flag next to yours on this common ground.
Yeah, I'm rocking that RE20, okay, with the distressor on the chain.
You got it all put together, baby. You don't mess around. Nah, man.
Son.
You spared no expense. So have you got like the diaper genies and like the whole thing going?
Here's the thing, and this is what I've learned, and I know very, very little. As every day progresses, I realize the ineptitude and the whatever the opposite of expanse is of my knowledge.
Oh, brother.
But here's the one thing that I do know, and I hold this to be true.
Okay.
If it has a barcode,
Yes,
it is for the parents.
that's right,
Because there ain't nothing that baby needs,
dude.
but really the mama. That's it.
Isn't it crazy?
It is insane. Like, let me break this down for you. So this is what happened. So Tuesday of 2 weeks ago. Good God. Wait, what's today? Today this is my life right now. I literally don't know what day it is. All right, May 17th.
Yes.
So on Tuesday, May 1st.
Okay.
Now, his original due date was April 29th.
Okay.
I went in to I've been waiting to crack this bubble for the longest time, but I'm finally I'm doing a couple episodes like Family Guy and American Dad, and so I'd come in to do some pickups for them, and I was talking to the director. He's like, "What are you doing?" I was like, "Man, I think we're like things are happening, like
Yes.
stuff's starting to happen right now." And he goes, "So the last thing I'm the last thing you're gonna do before you're a father."
Oh,
I was
yeah.
like, "Yeah, dude." He goes, "That's kind of cool or really sad. Get out of here." And so that was on Tuesday the 1st, and like my wife had already started feeling some things happening.
Oh, yeah.
And then we did the stupidest thing. We ran errands. There was stuff that we had to do.
Of
So
course.
we just ran errands and all this stupid stuff. And at 9:00, I'm like, oh, we need to eat. And then like hardcore, she'd been having like some contractions, but like
Sure.
hardcore every 3 to 4 minutes. Her
Oh.
contractions started like 10:00 at night.
Yes.
So from 10
It's
o'clock
always at night, brother. Do you know any
It is.
friend that is like, yeah, and then right after breakfast, my contractions started getting really intense, and so we went around lunchtime? Never. It's
No.
always in the middle of the night.
Our midwife, she explained it as well. There's something that actually happens at night.
Like with the barometric
like
pressure or something crazy?
physiologically. Yeah, there's some kind of like it's a hormonal thing that actually happens where your body goes, here you go. But the most convenient time ever.
Was it a full moon?
Just passed. April 30th was the full moon.
See,
So
they say that does it too.
it pulled him down, and then we had to work the rest of the way.
That's right.
So it's
I don't know
it's
about we, but I
midnight.
see what you're saying.
No, I didn't do nothing. I was support. You know what I
Cheerleading.
mean?
Cheerleading, yeah.
So at midnight, it gets real, and I'm watching my wife in pain, and you know, we as husbands, our whole purpose in life is to keep them from pain.
That's right.
To not shelter them, but just try to deflect as much as we can.
Mm.
And I'm watching her run face first into the storm, and then 40 hours later.
Oh, Troy.
40 hours later.
You're
and
kidding.
The baby Traveler was posterior, which means that ain't the right way. He's
Right.
supposed to be anterior, which means he was facing, looking back was to the left and he's facing right and his head was down. So he's posterior, which means she had 40 hours of back labor. Now, what that means, and I found this out, is that normally you get contraction for 60 seconds, rest.
Okay.
Contraction, 60 seconds, rest. She had no rest.
Oh.
So my wife, for 40 hours, and really even longer than that, because she hadn't slept until the morning of Tuesday. She hadn't eaten since lunch on Tuesday. So for probably closer to like 60 hours, no food, no sleep, no relief, no
beast.
epidural. Yeah, dude, beast.
She went beast mode on it.
And I met a different version of my wife. And it's crazy. And I tweeted this out, which sounds so stupid and trivial in such a weird way to like, summate the whole experience. But I said, there is no greater power on earth than a woman in labor.
I agree with you.
And a friend of ours shared this with me. She said, the human body can handle up to 40 dells. That's a unit of pain, 40 dells of pain.
Okay.
At the time of birth, a mother is experiencing 57.
No
dells,
way.
which is the equivalent of 20 bones being broken at the same time. Now,
that's rowdy.
There are all sorts of accoutrement that are at your disposal.
Yes.
You can. We did this in our home, bro. So we were walking around our neighborhood. My wife walked 2.5 miles while she was in labor. She walked around our neighborhood. We got to see our neighbors, and they were cheering us on. And we came in. I watched the sun rise twice on her as she was in labor, and we were in a tub in our room,
right?
And she gave birth to our son on our bed, and it was just this most beautiful thing. We were surrounded by people. Sigur Rós, the band Sigur Rós, was playing as he was born, and it was like this totally ethereal, spiritual thing. It was amazing.
That's so cool that they came to the room with you guys.
Yeah, man, we had
you had them right there in the bedroom.
This was our birthing team. Bliss, who is our midwife, Hayes, who is our doula, and a shaman, and
no way,
Julie.
Julie, who felt left out.
Yeah, guess who's the whitest of them all? But each of them had their part to play in this little 3-act play that we had, and we call it the dark hours. It was between 12 a.m. and 4 a.m. on Thursday morning when Pam is just about to tap out. She's in such pain, and we don't know what to do, and she's stalling, and there's all these things. And then Hayes goes in there, and like I wish I'm gonna have to send you a picture of Hayes so you can see her. Her name is Hayes Hawk.
Sure.
She is. She's just this beautiful black woman who is trained in Africa. She's exactly what Pam wanted. She was like, I need someone I can connect with on such a deep level.
Sure.
That isn't just going to be a coach. And there's this beautiful picture. We had my wife's business partner, Loretta, was there shooting the whole thing. So we have this beautiful picture of Pam on her side, and Hayes's hands are massaging Pam, and I'm massaging Pam, and our hands are just kind of overlapping. And there's just all these hands that are on Pam supporting her through this. But she grabs her at 12 o'clock in the morning, and she says, "Listen, Mama, we need to make a change." And she walked her through. She's like, "You're sending all of this energy when you scream or when you grunt out. You're sending all this energy up. I need you to send it down to your baby."
Yeah,
dude, it was just
that's deep.
Yeah, it was this amazing process, man. And I've learned so much every day. I keep saying that we turn a new page every day to see the story that he's writing.
That's right.
And he's just kind of taking along. I don't know how. I am sleep, bro.
Dude, it's secondary, baby.
We are right now. We're gearing up to finally go out on the road and do some kind of weekend warrior fly dates with this music project that I have.
Yeah.
And I literally, I was I run through the set every day just to kind of keep fresh. I almost fell asleep playing the set.
Yeah.
Like song 6 in, eyes are closed.
Yes.
I'm still playing. I'm still singing, but I'm not really
You're not there. You're not there. Yeah. No, of course not.
That's where I'm at.
That's amazing.
How are you, Gabe?
No, not how am I? Yeah, right. Don't you feel like, I feel like when I got married and when I had my first child, our daughter Amara, I feel like every stupid cliche line that has ever been given to me my whole life made perfect sense.
and then couldn't even begin to scratch the surface.
I mean, when like I think of the miracle, when they call it the miracle of childbirth,
It's exactly what it is.
it's exactly that. And you're like, I've heard this since I was a baby, and it's always sounds so stupid and just something people say. And then when you see your child from the first time, and when you see your wife, like you're saying, going through what they have to go through to deliver a baby, you're like, we've been doing this always,
Yeah.
you know?
And man, talk about the level of trust and the vulnerability and this just the submission and surrender to this process of going, you were made for this.
Made
You were
for it.
Made for this.
Woo!
You need to trust that your body knows exactly what to do, and everything. This whole notion of that's not real. That's not that fear that you have, that concern that you have. That's not real. And there were 2 days. He was born on 2:06 p.m. May 3rd. And until Saturday night, May 5th, man, we were in a weird place. And again, we had this amazing birth team that came through, and we had 2 chiropractors that came through to just kind of offer some relief. We had one that actually gave an adjustment to Traveler, and because his head was turned to the left a little bit.
Sure.
And we started noticing this look on our midwife's face, on Bliss's face, and she's concerned. Which I never want to see her concerned.
That's the last thing you want to see.
Yeah, man. Her face, she's calm as a Hindu cow, man. She's just chill.
Chilling.
And she kind of pulls me to the side, and his heart rate is around 101.
Mm-hmm.
It's supposed to be about 120 on the low, 140 is good. And so she's like, I'm a little concerned, and he's a little blue in his face.
Sure.
And that's typically immediate. You go to the ER. And if we had gone to the NICU, then that's like everything that we had worked
It
to
ruins
not
it,
have.
right?
Yeah,
It
you
ruins
got
it.
tubes going in and out and antibiotics and all this stuff. And it's just like,
That's right.
we didn't want to do that. We wanted this to have the way that nature had intended for this to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And we had our pediatrician come through, and the long or the short version of that is the next day I promptly called him and fired him and told him how he would never ever lay a hand on my son again.
Snap.
And then have you ever seen Field of Dreams?
Yeah, of course.
You remember Burt Lancaster in that? He played Moonlight Graham, Archibald Graham, the baseball player that ended up becoming a pediatrician.
I don't remember that specifically.
Man, go back and watch the movie, because I remember like, if that's who I want Moonlight Graham to be our pediatrician. And brother, we found him, and his name is Jay Gordon. And he left dinner with his wife on Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
From Santa Monica. We're in the valley, drives 30, 45 minutes into the valley, walks into the house, straight back to our room, and he lets out this sigh as soon as he sees him, and he goes, "Oh, thank God."
Oh, he wasn't
Because
worried.
He was worried, and as soon as he saw him, he was like, "I love it." And
My God.
Traveler had this squeak when he cried, so as he inhaled, he would squeak, and he goes, "I love the squeak."
Really?
And he was like, I love his color. And Traveler instantly changed him. He picked him up, and our other pediatrician was there if he was there for 15 minutes, I'd be surprised.
Mm.
Dr. Gordon, Dr. J was there for like an hour and a half.
Doing
and
his
walked us
thing.
through everything. We just saw him again today, and he calls him by his name. He's like, and here's the thing, man, we didn't want to have a baby. We wanted to offer the world a human.
Sure.
And we're raising the human, so, which is super weird that we named our son Traveler, because it's like, call him like Philip, give him a good name.
Yeah, hey,
Set him up.
You talking to the guy surrounded by musicians, man. I've heard
You
all
know,
kind of
it's like
names.
this-
Oh yeah,
the craziest thing, but it's like either you better be a musician, you ought to be an actor, you better be an artist.
exactly.
But it's
Yeah.
like there's no accountant. What's your accountant name? Traveler.
His name's Traveler.
Oh,
We won't focus on that.
So here's the deal. My wife and I, and we bounced around. We were set for girls' names. We had it on lock. We were
Really?
good. We had nailed it down for. We had a really cool for Christmas. My wife and I go somewhere really, really cool, and so we had this bucket list thing to do before we had kids. We wanted
Sure.
the 2 things we wanted to do. We did those on 2 separate trips. One bucket list thing for me, I really wanted to go to midnight mass Christmas Eve at Notre Dame. I
Oh
have
my
deep
gosh.
history at Notre Dame in Paris,
Sure.
and we got to do it. And if you are of the mind at all to experience that, it is one of the most beautiful, timeless things you could do, regardless of whatever your belief system is. It's just a beautiful thing to experience.
And it probably hasn't changed in hundreds of years.
No, and that's the beautiful thing. My wife is, because we were literally sitting on the floor, and she goes, "I'm so sorry that we're sitting on the floor." It's like, what do you think they were doing 1,000 years ago?
Exactly.
1,000 years ago is when that thing was built.
Oh my gosh.
And one of the things I love about Notre Dame is you stand out and you look at this beautiful edifice, this just, I mean, a perfect example of Gothic structure. And in the middle of this city that is just shed its skin so many times and has seen wars and famine and disease and pestilence and tyrants and all of this stuff. And this beautiful, beautiful, people who say they don't like Parisians have never met a good one, or they haven't spent any time. Parisians are amazing people. They just don't put up with any BS, man. They just, they're like, are you real? Are you here to have fun? Because we love our wine and we love our people. And that's what they're there about. So we're sitting there. And the thing that I love about Notre Dame is, and really any cathedral, is that the hands that set to work on that, the hands that laid the first stone, did so knowing that they would never see this completed.
Oof, sure.
And that it wasn't their generation, nor would it be their sons, nor their grandsons, but probably their great-grandsons would be the ones that walked through that door long after they were gone. And for me, that's the mentality that I have in everything, that when I set my hands to work and when I lay that first pavestone, whether it be professionally or for my son, it's got to be a cathedral mentality. Yeah. Because I know that I will not benefit from this personally.
Right. That's right.
I will be long gone. And that's what I hope, is that I build something that can last, so that some stupid kid from Texas has a dream of spending midnight mass Christmas Eve inside Notre Dame and being happy about being sat on the floor.
I know that's right.
That to me is what is so beautiful about that. But anyway, so we have girls' names knocked out, and we're sitting there. We're in Bern, Switzerland, which is where Albert Einstein camped out for a lot of his life. Because we wanted to ski the Matterhorn. We wanted to ski Zermatt on Christmas Day, and we got to do that. That's a really cool way to spend Christmas.
I was about to say, that's like the best Christmas ever. Forget the presents.
Dude, my wife and I, we go hard for the holidays. We don't mess around. And our son. So we're sitting there and we're like, we have girls' name picked out, and we're looking, we're like, dude, if we have a boy, we are hosed. Like, we have nothing.
We were the same way. We were the same exact way.
So we're sitting there, and now we're pregnant. We're sitting in we're standing in our kitchen, and my wife and I,
so this all happened right after I saw you.
So we had just,
because I saw you at the beginning of December.
Yeah. We had just, we had just found out that we were pregnant. So we were just in the safety zone. So when I told you and Toby, I was like, yo, dude, I'm about to be a dad. Yeah. That was one of the first times those words had flown out of my lips. I had told Kevin, my buddy Kevin Max, literally hours before that, and he's like the fourth person that I had told.
That's incredible.
So yeah, it was really new. So we're sitting there every night. Like, my wife and I, we go on a date every night in our kitchen, and we cook dinner together, and we play Billie Holiday.
Oh Lord.
Yeah, it's cool because we have this crafted this Pandora channel where it goes from Billie Holiday into Nina Simone into Edith Piaf, and then just Miles.
That's great eating food.
Heck yeah, dude! It's beautiful. It's amazing. And
could you imagine that people ate while they were actually in the room singing? That's what's really nuts.
That hurts my heart to think about that. Just someone's in there making pasta or whatever, and Nina's just over there opening up a bottle of wine, or fifth bottle of wine.
Miles Davis is back there on the freaking horns.
I'm gonna pick up my trumpet real quick and just go crazy. But that's, and it's that time of year right now in LA where the sky hits this cool dusty blue and pink hue, and the weather is perfect, and the air just lightens up, and it's just perfect, and all of our windows and our patio doors are open into our backyard, and this music is spilling out, and the kitchen is being filled with the aromas of rosemary and garlic and everything as I'm cooking. And we're trying to think of some names. And I've been reading like Ralph Waldo Emerson a lot. And so I was thinking maybe Emerson. And I was like, there's not really that much of a connection. And I just, what do we do with that? And then we both wanted the name to be something that was, it wasn't a name. It was a word. It was something that we were claiming to be his name.
Sure. And
we're sitting there like, and Pam even said it. She was like, it's like Traveler. And we both looked at each other and we kind of went, I mean, we can't name our son Traveler, right?
Yeah. You shot it down as you're falling in love with it.
Well, yeah, because Traveler Baker, we didn't want it to end on an R. We knew that we didn't want to do that.
We did the same thing. We were like,
really?
Yeah, with our third baby, which we didn't know it was going to be. And we say a lot of the same, what you went through, like really want to find a meaning. Now it is a name, but like just something for our family and kind of the old school way that people used to name their children. You know, people used to name their kids for what they wanted for the child or what they needed for the family. Dude. You know what I'm saying? So we kind of went back to Bible times on that, you know, how they would name their child, He Laughs, you know, and things like that. And so we were looking for a name that meant peace. And same thing with us. We were like, we fell in love with Milo, but we were like, Milo Patillo. We're like, we can't do that to our child, right? Just forever.
And lo and behold, you did.
Exactly. So you guys are wrestling with Traveler Baker.
We had the middle name because 4 years ago now, Hyde Park in London is a really important place for us. We spend a lot of time in London. I love that city, and
it's awesome.
I will never go without. Have you been to Hyde Park? You know what I'm talking about?
I don't know if I've been to Hyde Park, but we've definitely, because you know us, we get to go in and come out so fast, and so we try to make
there for 5 minutes, right?
Right, and so we try to make the most out of our day. So we go and do a bunch of stuff. So you know, we're running to Chinatown, Piccadilly Circus, and you know, we're trying to like do everything. You know,
look, kids, Big Ben.
Yeah, exactly.
Look, kids, Parliament. So
right.
next time you find yourself in London, man, it's smack dab in the middle of central London, and it is. It's what Central Park was patterned after, and it's this huge park. It's like a little city in the midst of this beautiful respite, and there's a river that flows through it, and there's a lake that's there, and I've run through Hyde Park. I've seen it in every season. I love that place.
Sure.
And one of my favorite memories, not only of there but also with my wife, is I was in London doing a press junket for some game that had just come out. I think I was there for either Infamous or Arkham Origins. I can't remember. And my wife at the same time was in South Africa, in Zambia and Swaziland as the photographer for this mission group. So she's documenting the building of these schools, and they were working with the kids that were there and like bringing in clean water. Just gnarly, and it's summer.
What I'm looking it up. We have been there because we played the Royal Albert Hall.
Yeah, dude. So Royal Albert Hall,
which is right there,
is right there on the south side of the park, right by Queen's Gate, and then like Mayfair and all of the that's the most highfalutin part of London. So yeah, of course you played Royal Albert Hall. I remember that. That little spot right there, dude, you're right. If you come in from Royal Albert Hall, you go right through like the Queen's Garden, and like there's a Princess Diana like a memorial rose garden that's right there. It's just absolutely beautiful. That's one of the most beautiful sides of the park. Is the part that faces Royal Albert Hall.
Oh my gosh, yes, I remember it being gorgeous and being too uneducated to really understand what I was experiencing.
And you just wander through. That's how you get educated.
Right.
You just look and go, this is pretty.
Yeah, and talk to the cab drivers. The cab driver picked us up. He was like, "What are you guys doing?"
We're like, "You want to go in this side right here? Don't go down this side right there. That's where the dodgy people hang out. This is where you go. All right, right. Off you go."
I go, "We're playing a place called Royal Albert Hall." He's like, "The Royal Albert Hall." I was like, "Oh yes," and he went on to explain. He was like, "That's like if I came to America, was like, oh, I'm just playing some place called Madison Square Garden." And I was like, "Oh, okay."
Yeah.
Well.
Can you drop me off at Carnegie Hall and play a gig there tonight?
Exactly. Yeah.
So it's my wife's in South Africa. I'm in London. It's in the middle of summer, so it's beautiful in London, and it's just the worst time of year to be in South Africa because it's freezing cold and my wife is literally sleeping on the floor. She gets a horrible flu because she gets so sick. And we were just no communication for a solid, the entire time she's there. It was 3 weeks that we were apart. And we would get a text like every 3 days or something. And so I'm hearing this broken heart of just the depravity of humanity that she's experiencing. And while she's lying her head down on literally dirt, I'm in a feather bed and a pillow in a 5-star hotel.
Right. The opposite.
And so I decide that I'm going to rescue my wife, and she's actually connecting from Johannesburg back to London and then Dallas and then back to LA. So I'm going to head her off at the pass. I'm going to meet her at Heathrow. And so, but I have to tell her that I'm doing this. Otherwise she would just connect through and never make it through.
Right.
So I get her first class ticket. She's flying with me. She's going to spend a couple of days in London with me, and then we're going to fly back home in style. And I said, babe, I got you. And I told her everything, all my illustrious plans. And she replies back to me and she says, babe, I started this trip with these people. I have to finish it with these people. And I was like, that's my wife right there.
That's why I married you, girl.
I said, is there any way we can meet? And so we met at Heathrow. We took the Heathrow Express in, and I hadn't seen my wife in 3 weeks. And it literally was one of those movie moments where we just run to each other across the terminal.
No, that's right. Yeah.
And I pick her up, and she's dirty, and she smells, and she's crying. And I just literally pick her up. I was like, let's go. And we get in the train, and Heathrow Express drops you right off into Paddington Station. And I said, let's just go to the park. So we get in a cab. Cab takes us to a park, and it's like 5 o'clock in the morning. Sun is just barely starting to come up, and it starts lightly raining.
Oh, Lord.
Yeah, but not enough to like
ruin it.
Yeah, it's just like refreshing, and it's literally, I'm watching as the rain is kind of like washing off the dirt on her face, and she's looking around as people start milling about their day. It's like a Tuesday. It's nothing big. And so people are going to work, and they're stopping off at the coffee shop or the Pret, and they're getting their sandwiches and their coffee or their tea or whatnot. And people are starting to mill about. And she has just been in a place where she used to look at a 12-year-old girl and say, I don't know why your father and your uncle rape you. I don't have an answer for that. And she's looking around at everybody like alarm bells are going off for her, saying, how can you go about your day?
Yes,
not
culture shock. Yeah, of course.
And so I just watch as my wife process these two juxtaposed worlds. And I wrote this song called Hyde Park for her.
Take a walk around the park, clear our head of all these troubles. Kisses in the rain, speaking volumes without a word.
And that moment was like, I want my son, the two things that I want my son to experience in this world. Number one is that we are part of a much bigger culture, and to never be bound by the culture of which you were brought into originally.
That's right.
You need to expand your mind. You need to meet other people. You need to have your beliefs challenged. You need to travel. You need to see this world. And I want him to experience the kind of love that I felt and we shared in Hyde Park. So that's what his name is.
That is incredible. That's incredible. And you're a new dad. How amazing. I mean, you have all this buildup. The woman gets to feel the buildup for 9 months.
Right.
We get to kind of be a part of it when it kicks and when it moves and when it makes her stomach feel like she's on a roller coaster. But like when you get to hold him now and see him and kiss him and change his diaper, it's like, I never thought I would love to change a diaper.
Oh, dude, all the dads that are like, I never changed a diaper, man. It's a woman's job. I'm like, no, bro.
What?
I'm going to be the fastest diaper changer in the West. I'm going to be able to do this stuff in my sleep, bro.
Yes.
I take pride in that. And it's right now is really challenging for me because You know, we're breastfeeding, and my wife says it's like the reward that I get for all the hard
That's
work.
you doggone right. That connection.
Yeah, and I don't have that,
No.
and so it's teaching me patience, and it's teaching me to not make him be something that serves me, because my life is to serve him. So right now he looks at me like, I don't know what you are. You're a weird shape.
Yeah.
And when I do get any kind of response, I'm the one who takes him from mommy, puts him on the changing table, and changes his diaper. So he's just kind of like, dude, I hate this whole process.
Every time you touch me, I get cold.
Right, exactly. And so that's his association with me. But the second that he goes back to mom, give me the milk. So
yes.
It's teaching me, like, but I know, and I have this faith and that day is going to come, and it may come 3 months from now, 7 months from now. I don't know when it is, but there will be that moment where I'm like, you're my son.
Yes.
This moment, you're my son.
It's funny that you say that. My wife, my youngest, Milo, is 1.5 years, and he's going through this, he can't get enough of daddy thing right now.
Yeah.
And my wife said to me just 2 days ago, she said, welcome to breastfeeding. This is what breastfeeding feels like. Because he just does, he looks at her and wants to be with me, and he's running to me every time I walk in the house, and it's coming, brother. And it's beautiful.
Man, that's so encouraging to hear too. It's great, because this has been stripping down, man, life. I think we may have talked about this a little bit when I was there. It's amazing how life will naturally do this culling. And there was a harsh culling that we went through about 1.5 years ago of people, and like there was pain that was associated with it, and I didn't understand it, and I fought against it, and I allowed that pain to really take root in me. And now I realized what was happening was that life was going, dude, you have no room in your house.
Woo!
No room. And because this kid is going to come in, and he's going to take up every square inch of it.
That's right.
And I still feel like we don't have enough room.
Yeah.
And
well, ain't no room for foolishness.
No.
When them babies get here, you start recognizing and weeding out the foolishness quick.
And just space. Like there's like for 40 hours, it was a real good litmus test as to who our people were in our life. Because there were people going, hello, we haven't heard anything. What's going on?
Oh, man.
Other people going,
this ain't for y'all?
Yeah, because my stupid, I went, here we go. I had a code word of when we were going into labor, and it was Paddington. So people were waiting for Paddington. I was on set a few weeks ago, and one of the PAs had my phone, and I said, dude, if you see Paddington come across that screen, let me know, because that's
out.
A rap on Troy.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
And it was so great, because they were like, and cut. I look over, and Walt, the PA, would be like, no Paddington. And so like the whole cast and crew was in on it.
That's
it was really, really cool. But then I made the mistake of going, all right, Paddington, and I blasted it out to all of my people. And so now they're just doing nothing but, for 2 days, their thumbs and pacing for 2 days. But then the other people were like, yo, whenever you're ready, we understand.
That's right.
We're concerned, and we want you to know that we are hanging at our outer markers, but you just let us know when it's time and when you can surface. And we didn't see anybody that wasn't of a medical persuasion for 4 days.
That's right. That's right.
And it just, people came in, and our dearest friends that had to wait and finally came through and were able to hold them. They're pregnant right now. And it's just like, we've been doing this whole process together. But man, there's so much that a friend of mine met Leonard Cohen a few years ago, or now it's actually several years ago.
Yeah.
And Leonard Cohen says to him, just in the most plain way, as if this was just common knowledge, he said, save every song, every poem you've ever written, because there's a lot of things that you have written now that your future self will explain to you.
Ooh.
There's things you're writing that you can't understand. And I'm experiencing that right now. There's not only just in life, but just even in writing, there's songs that I've written and there's things that I've done that I'm like, oh, now I get it. Now I understand why I wrote that lyric that was kind of existing out here, and now it's a deep truth to me that's taken on new meaning. So yeah, it's a trip. It's a trip.
Life is weird like that, man. It's like it works in circles, but the circles don't necessarily trace each other.
It's like a DNA helix,
Yeah, exactly.
It's just constantly moving, and it's 298 amino acids must line up in order to make you a human. And if you took 298 pennies and that were all in, arrange them by year from whatever, 1980 all the way up.
Sure.
The chance of you just like throwing those up in the air and then them falling into chronological order are
pretty
statistically mathematically impossible.
Right.
Carl Sagan was like, it's impossible.
Yeah, exactly.
For that to happen. There's 298 of your pennies that have lined up completely in chronological order to make you. And I find beauty and deep truth in that. And so that's what allows me to kind of sit back and trust and go, okay, deep within the recesses of my being is the knowledge to be able to do this. Everything else is noise.
That's right.
And all I have to do is just be quiet, be still, listen, and don't doubt.
Yes. I've told all my friends that are about to become parents, I'm like, man, I know you want to read the books, but just put them down.
Sure.
There's something supernatural about becoming a parent, and it's in you, and you know how to do it.
Yeah.
From day one.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Oh.
And man, you can separate yourself from people very, very quickly when you start talking about how you want to parent.
Oh yeah.
And we had this one thing in our birthing class called the bubble of peace. And our instructor was like, hey, whenever you start talking about whatever it is, vaccinations or circumcision or whatever, it's like, just remember you have a bubble of peace, and your bubble of peace surrounds you at all times. And there may be some times where you just have to be inside your bubble of peace while people outside just try to attack. And so we would come home and Pam would be like, man, I had to bubble of peace in people today. Like,
that's right. What the quickness.
I got the bubble of peace with me right now. So hopefully she doesn't bubble of peace with me.
Oh, she will. There will come a day when that baby is testing the both of you at the same time.
Yeah, man.
And you're missing each other because the energy is all poured into that baby.
But what's funny is for a minute. This is like the most every going back to your first question, is like everything with a barcode is just for the parent's convenience. And this is what I've learned. Parenting is not about convenience. It's about surrendering to the fact that it's the most inconvenient. What's happening right now, just personally in my life, is insane. It's stupid. There's a lot of games that we've got, some that we're still working on, some that we're starting to wrap up that are going to come out. Production is really high. And then in the midst of that, I've decided to become, more of an entrepreneur and branch out, because I don't just want to be that guy from that game.
Sure. Oh yeah.
I could live and die by that. And I would, by the way, if I stopped now, I'd be grateful, because I've been able to do more than what most people have. And it's, I hate using this term because it's so overused and it's such a platitude, but I'm blessed that I've had an opportunity to work in the projects and have the kind of roles and the appreciation for the fans and play games that I'm in that I'm proud of. I like what I've done, but I'd like to think that my best is before me, not just behind me. But we've started branching out, because I directed this game that came out called Shadow of War. It was the Middle Earth. Game. I played Talion in both games, but I played Talion, and then I stupidly I directed the second one.
You said it was quite the journey.
Yeah, I learned a lot about my limitations. Yeah, and Talion is such a laconic character. There's not much that he needs to do. He's just basically going to be like, why is this happening? And that's all I pretty much have to do.
Yeah.
I'm just, there's not these deep pathologic moments.
Yeah. He had a lot of questions in that one.
A lot of questions, and other people had all the answers.
Yes.
But being able to understand the structure of a scene and understanding how to shoot the cameras. A lot of people don't understand the way that games are made now. It's shooting it like a film. Like we would be on a soundstage, all of the actors are there. The only problem is they don't have the benefit of like what Peter Jackson did, which is these beautiful, amazing sets and incredible costumes and
That's
actual
right.
props. And when you're looking at an orc, it looks like an orc. We had, Gary, who's a stunt guy and just,
with dots
a
on
really
his face.
big dude with dots on his face and a camera hanging off of it.
Yeah.
And, we would build, we would have an amazing crew that would come in and be like, okay, so we need this to be like, we're going to Minas Ithil, and we need this to be like, a huge staircase that's leading up to this huge chamber that's going to have all of Idril's treasures or whatever in it. And so they would build these steps that would go like 6 to 8 feet. And so but the staircase is actually like 30 feet high. And so we'd have to go, okay, so walk up these, okay, cut, go back to the bottom, do it again. And we have to get all these, so it looks like they're climbing 30 feet of stairs. We're actually climbing 6 to 8 feet of stairs. And it's all of this movie magic that you get to do that looks so beautiful and seamless. And it's all theater of the mind.
Right.
We're looking at these actors, Pollyanna McIntosh, who played Shelob. She's on Walking Dead, and she's a brilliant actress. And I had such a joy working with her. A lot of her scenes are very like, it's just a 2-shot with her and Talion, and getting to work with her in those scenes and like really kind of crunch that down was kind of a highlight. And she's one of those directors, or she's one of those actors that every director loves to work with, because she just, every take she gives you is gold.
Wow.
So we did the main game, and then we did the 2 DLCs, which was the Blade of Galadriel DLC, and then the other Baranor DLC that just came out. That was really, really awesome. And I was proud of Monolith for doing this, because there's a whole other side. Like as like Finn became the first person of color really in Star Wars, Baranor was the first person of color within Middle Earth. Like,
that's right. Yeah.
Tolkien never wrote anybody that was like,
yeah.
And so we created this character that was, sired by the Saul Zaentz, who's, owns the whole Tolkien estate. And
I do got to give props to Billy D, for being in Star Wars. But I see what you're saying with Finn. It felt like
true.
I'm not the guy.
Here's the thing that they did with Lando Calrissian is like, here's a black guy, and we're gonna make him the bad dude that backstabs his friend.
I know, I hated that. I was like, no, you gotta be kidding.
When I look at Finn, I'm saying like the stormtroopers are just faceless guys, and they're like, now they're Aussies or New Zealanders for some reason because of what we did in the prequels, and then it's like, hey, now they're like these adopted children, and guess what? One of them's black. Yes. It was like, come on, that's awesome. So thank you for the correction. But yes,
no, not the correction. I was just saying, because I know where you're going with that, because of who Finn. I remember when he popped up, I felt the exact same when he popped up in the trailer. The first one, when you just see him kind of like come up,
right?
I was like, yes, and people were like, wait, but Lando, and I was like, yeah, but that's going to be different. That's going to be different than Lando.
He made the same sound on screen that the audience did when they were looking at the screen when that moment happened.
Exactly.
It was just beauty by J.J. Abrams.
It so was.
But this DLC, the one of the most beautiful things that they did, besides just, and that's not what the story's about either. It's about it's about 2 brothers, and it's about family, and it's about really just a search for identity. And Ike Amadi was a person that played Baranor, and he actually, when we're shooting, he's the star. So he goes from kind of like not an ancillary character, but he's
he was the side character in the main
side
story.
Character in the main story. But in this, it's like, yo, it's on you, and that's when they had their second kid. Like literally, his wife goes into labor. He shows up the morning after they have their daughter.
Yes,
to help us cast his co-star, and then like a week later he's on set shooting, and I haven't talked to him since I've had my kid. I've texted him, but I want to see him and go, dude, the hell that I put you through on stage, asking you to remember all of these lines and giving you direction and everything.
Yeah.
You're literally you're having to tell yourself, and heart beats, and I breathe.
Right.
The amount of coffee that he did. So he pulled through, and he did an amazing job on that. Usman Ali, who I got to work with on Uncharted, the DLC for Uncharted, and he's hilarious. He's on Veep. It's he and Ike Amadi that's in the Baranor DLC, which Shadow of War really got a bad rap because of the whole Loot Crate and
It got tied into that, man. It wasn't even. We talked about it on the show. We were like, gosh, it just happened to have it at the same time that some real bad Loot Crate stuff was going on other games, and it just, I feel you.
It sucks because there's a lot of people, there's 300 people that worked really, really hard to make that game, and it was a very expensive game.
Mm-hmm.
And even that DLC, I feel like, is not going to get its due because it's kind of like what Uncharted Lost Legacy did, where how do you have this franchise with existing characters, and then you flip the script and you make it not with those existing characters. You put 2 new people.
Mm-hmm.
And in there, will people go on that journey with it? And Lost Legacy is amazing. And Baranor, Desolation of Smaug, Desolation of Mordor, is that what it's called?
I'm not sure.
We always work under
different names, right? Yeah, exactly.
DLC for Shadow of War. There it is. Demolition of Smaug, whatever it's called. Is the same thing. It's like there's no Talion. And it's all Baranor's story.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's not this rate. It's way more grounded. It's a fun ride, man. I hope people play it. I really do, just because it's really, really good. I've got no stake in the company. It's not like if anybody buys more.
Sure.
Look, if you already bought the season passes, you've already got it.
Yeah, exactly.
But I'm not trying to boost this. I'm not here plugging the game. It's a really, really good game.
Well, I wanted to ask you about that too, because I know that you were directing and acting, and we had talked about the struggle of playing Talion and directing Talion.
Yeah.
So did you get to have a lot more fun with just the directing?
Yeah, dude. Way, way, way more.
Mm-hmm.
It felt, because if I'm on set, I'm also in a mocap suit.
That's right.
And
the whole time.
The whole time. And so it became
you'll get to change it to director clothes.
To be able to just be like hat backwards, and I'm not a guy that sits in a chair.
Sure.
I remember one of the first movies that I did. The cleanest chair on set was the director's, because he never sat in it.
Right.
And I realized why is because a director is not about control. It's about surrender. And it's about leading people and getting people to, Orson Welles was brilliant because he could write, direct, act, produce, edit, everything.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not, to me, good leadership. Good leadership is someone who says, this is my vision, and gets that person to capture his vision,
instead of just mimicking what you step out to do and show them.
Yeah, with the same amount of passion, and then is able to direct their level of skill and talent into making it feel like they're not making your movie, they're making their movie. And that's what the goal to me is look, this is not my game. I want this to be your game, but if we can line up, then we can make our game.
That's right.
And that's really what I go for. But having the freedom of not having to worry about memorizing lines and hitting my marks, and just focusing on, blocking and camera blocking and really digging into, what's his name? Robert McKee says, if there is no subtext, then you need to rewrite your scene. Because if what they're talking about is what they're talking about, then you need to rewrite your scene.
Too shallow. Mm-hmm.
Everything should be about subtext. And so even when we were doing, mission dialogue about, well, we should go over here and get this thing, it has to be about something else. Otherwise, then why are we doing? As a gamer, I don't want to be taken off the stick to be told what to do.
Sure.
Just let me play the game. Let me figure it out. And this is what's funny, man, is my buddy Nolan North and I have started doing this little YouTube thing because, we have all this free time.
Anytime I see you guys together, I'm like, okay, number one, they look like they're having a really good time. But number two, they have to be squeezing this in someplace.
Barely.
Yeah.
I mean, the reason why is because we sat down. I got one of those RetroPie, like NES Classic.
Sure.
And I mean, there was a game that I started 28 years ago, and called Chrysalis, and it came out in 1991, I think, or 1990. And for my birthday, I was able to rent a Nintendo and one game, and I had it for 24 hours.
Yes.
And I got as far as I could in that game. And it sat
Sure.
for almost 3 decades unfinished.
Yeah.
And so I just finished it like 2 months ago.
Doesn't that feel amazing?
Dude, I mean, when I saw that last screen, I was like, I
did
it.
Yeah, the kid in you comes out.
It was the entire time, and I would walk in, and Pam would look at me. I was like, so I finally got the Sword of Wind. And, I still need to get the bracelet. I understand that, but today was a really good day.
Yeah.
And it was this great daunting task, and I've got this whole backlog of games. Like I really, really, really want to play God of War. I will not devolve and go down to Fortnite just because
I know.
I have a child now, and like CPS will take it away from me
And
if I start playing Fortnite.
listen to me. Now that you have a son, you have to play God of War.
I have to play God of
It brought
War.
up so much stuff in me from having sons. I was like, okay, and I know it can sound silly because it's video games, but like to me, because I love video games, it's more storytelling than it is, just mere entertainment. But like there was so much stuff I pulled out of it from my own life that I was like, ooh, I want to do that. Oh, I don't want to do that. Ooh, I do want to do that. You know what I'm saying? It was the weirdest thing. It's a great game.
We were on set right when the game came out, and they loaded it up, and we start playing through. And I saw that one moment where I'm like, "Dang, dude, they're gonna have an entire scene with no dialogue."
Yes,
well done.
Yes,
Corey is an amazing director, and I really applaud him and that team because that game could have gone a completely different way.
That's right.
You know what I mean?
That's right.
And the fact that they brought that franchise back from the dead and gave it such new life and didn't just make this great story, but I mean, made a great game. It felt like God of War again. It was hard.
Yes.
And it was so rewarding. It instantly I was like, stop, turn it off because I want to see them because I want to play this.
Exactly.
But going back to the retro games, I started playing these retro games, and then Nolan has just never played games before, and so he and I sat down one night and just started playing, and we realized we've gotten away as game makers. We've gotten away from this one. Here's the reason: nobody was selling millions of copies
of anything
of games.
Yeah,
there wasn't $200 million games.
That's right.
There weren't $10 million or $3 million games, and there weren't big franchises that had to continue to sell because you have an office in Santa Monica with 300 employees.
That's right. Yeah.
And there's not Metacritic, and there's not all of this stuff. It was just make a game that you find to be challenging and see if somebody else does the same.
Mm-hmm.
And the beautiful simplicity that comes out of that. And just last year, we kind of saw a little bit of a trend where like games like Inside and
so good.
Her Story were like, no tutorial, figure it out.
Yes, that's right. This
is the game that you're playing.
Go.
And I applaud those people that do that, as opposed to, and there's some games where you're like, there's a lot of mechanics we got to teach you.
Of course, yeah.
But I don't necessarily want to be told all the time, use the stick to look around. Like, really? I can figure that out for myself.
Yeah, I think I do that coming into this game.
Yeah, let me get frustrated. Like, we're so scared. And I think the reason why we have those tutorializations is because there is a lot of money on the line, and there is a lot of people that are employed by this, and everybody just wants to make sure that people are happy and that you like it.
Mm-hmm.
And
right away.
Neil Druckmann was one of the first people that I've heard with games go, I don't care if people like my game.
Ooh,
I don't care.
Really?
He when we start talking about the ending, when he first laid out the ending to us, and so much, not so much, I don't want people to take that wrong. There's a lot of things about the story that changed, and it evolved. It got better. Like,
sure,
where the original story that we heard, so many of the elements were still there, but just characters move around and were repurposed and things kind of streamlined a little bit. Because as we were doing it, Neil was like, there's a better way to tell this story. And when he finally told us, here's the end, and Ashley and I look at each other like, dude, are you sure you want to do that? He goes, I don't care if people like it.
Oh,
I just don't want them to not care about it.
ooh,
And
yes, that's the
that's
right
it.
reasons.
He said that if he didn't tremble to press send on the email with the scenes, then he went back through and redid it because it wasn't good enough.
Golly.
He had to be like, oh my God, I don't know if I can send these scenes out.
Right.
And every time there was one scene where we'd be like, yo, bro, are you sure
Yeah,
that you want to do this?
yeah, yeah.
One of the ones that I remember is when we're sitting there doing the table read, and Debbie Earl Brown is sitting there at the table, and we go through the scenes, and he goes, anybody have any questions? And Earl goes, yeah, I got one. When it talks about Bill as my partner.
Hmm.
And Neil goes, yes. He goes, what does that mean? And Neil says the famous, what do you think?
Huh.
And he goes, I like to think that when he says a partner in this kind of world, the social mores of being gay and straight are really gone. And it's about finding someone that you have a connection with, and that this was his partner. Like this was his love.
Mm-hmm.
So Neil let Earl decide in the room whether or not Bill was going to be gay.
That is really interesting.
Dude.
That's great though, because you want the
Yeah.
human aspect, right? Like you were saying earlier, you don't want it written for you. You want it to the subtext.
Well, to me, it just cast. It was foreshadowing of what kind of game he wanted to make, just as he wanted Earl to have agency in his character.
Mm-hmm.
He wanted the player to have agency in the story
Mm-hmm.
and the experience as well, and to really feel the first time when it turns from, when you go into winter and you see Ellie there, and there's the arrow that hits the bunny, and when you move that stick and it's now Ellie that's moving.
Yes.
That's why people are like, oh no, I didn't play the game, but I watched a Let's Play on YouTube. I'm like, you don't understand.
Yeah, it's different. Yeah,
It's just different when you are controlling that girl. It all changes. It all changes.
Yes. What for you in directing Shadow of War and moving forward? What about directing? You're talking about all these great directors. What about that do you think is going to change your acting?
Oh man, so much.
Yeah.
Number one, it's understanding that really actors are the last part. Actors are the very, very last thing to be thrown in, and while they're the mouthpiece for the scenes and for the writers, and the contribution that they give to a scene is it's unparalleled.
Mm-hmm.
It's so unimportant.
Yeah. You had a great quote from Alfred Hitchcock that kind of said the same thing.
Actors are props that eat.
That's right. That's right. I loved that. When you said that in December, I was like, from a storyteller and a director standpoint, from a script writer standpoint, like I was like, I can really appreciate that.
Yeah. He also, and he was notoriously a lecherous and cruel director, especially to his actors. But he also had this wonderful thing that I love. He says, when all else fails, use dialogue.
Yeah, sure.
Because what he was painting was the space. That's really what Hitchcock was going after. He was creating a world that, what does it look like when the world gets taken over by birds? What does it look like when a man slowly goes kind of insane because he's cooped up and incapacitated and starts spying on his neighbors? What does it look like? It's all these postulates that he, it's never about Jimmy Stewart. It's about the man that he's representing. It's about the human that he's representing.
Right.
So it's not about Norman Bates. It's about a guy that had this relationship, and he even said this best: the best villain is the one that you can relate to. So you have to fall in love with Norman before you can be afraid of him.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, it's when there was a game that I did once where one of the actors came in and she wanted to click a pen as like a character choice, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And she was like, sorry, I need someone to make me something that can work for this, because I feel like my character would do this. And the director was like, yeah, let's see if we can do. And you look around at everybody else going, No, because there's no way we can animate that. And even if we try, to be so horribly expensive. 2, it's bad for sound because it's just
Yes.
going to be dirty the entire time. And 3, it's a terrible choice. That's your choice, that you click a pen, and you could tell that she had built her entire character around this clicking pen. And David Milch, creator of Deadwood and many, many other things, but talks about the currency so much about it's never about, if it becomes about a clicking pen, it's he has a scene in Deadwood where they have Can of Peaches, and it's like, it's never about the can of peaches, about what the can of peaches represents. And
That's
that
right.
goes to the very heart of his story. It's never about gold, it's about what the gold represents, and that's the whole premise of the show. And for me, that's about, whether it's a game, it's a TV show, it's a book, it's a movie, it's all about, what is the idea that you're trying to put across, and can you make that accessible and digestible to your audience? Rod Serling did a talk in the 60s with UCLA writing students, and one of the guys, you can kind of tell he was proud of knowing this fact. He said, well, it's like Fellini. Fellini says that he never considers the audience in his writing. And you see Serling look at him and he goes, is that a quote? And he goes, yes, that's a quote from Fellini. He goes, well, then I, my friend, would disagree with Fellini because I believe the audience is a part of your writing.
Yes, there you go.
You're writing for them. Otherwise, why are we creating art?
Yes. Toby says that all the time. He says, like, I make music to serve. I don't make music for myself. It's a service to the people around him,
And your art can't serve you. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Too many people is this good?
That's when it gets bad.
It?
That's when it gets bad.
That's when it gets bad.
Yes.
One of my favorite
Absolutely.
examples of art. I didn't care about this at all until I was face to face with it. And we were in Florence for our honeymoon, and Pam really wanted to show me the David. I'm like, I don't care about seeing the Eiffel Tower. I don't care about seeing Big Ben. I don't need to see the David.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a trope, at this point.
You're like, I've seen it, kind of.
And then you walk into the museum, and it's at the end of this very long, narrow hall, and it's just lit so simply. And it's breathtaking. It is just seeing the work of art. The sculpture itself is a work of art, and the way that you have to experience it is by walking around it, because as you walk around it, you see different aspects of it.
Sure.
And the question becomes, is it the moment before or is it the moment after he slayed the giant? And everybody has a difference. Like, it's absolutely before. He's steeling himself for battle. And for me, it's afterwards, and the recognition of the weight of the moment. He knew that at that moment, everything changed and everything would be different. And there was this remorse to actually slaying the giant. But that's a whole other thing. But the beauty of the David to me is that it's just down the street from the Duomo, which before there was the Vatican, there was the Duomo. And, Florence was the Medicis and Michelangelo. And Michelangelo would pass by the Duomo every day to his shop. And in the backyard of the Duomo was this large chunk of marble that had been rejected for the floor. And it just sat out there, and he would go and say, can I please have this chunk of marble? And they're like, no, it's no. So for 6 months, every day he petitioned, please give me this marble. And they finally Michelangelo, what are you going to do with this thing?
Yeah, yeah.
And for the next 2.5 years, he carved the David, and out of a rejected piece of marble.
Yes.
So, but he did that, again, it's that cathedral mentality. He did that because he saw potential in that marble, and he had to get it out. But the David doesn't serve him. He doesn't look at that and go, yes, I have done it. I have given the world a shining example of a human figure study in marble. He did it because he saw the potential in the marble, and that's why he carved the David. But we, as artists, we are compelled to create and to share. And if we do so in silence, then we don't serve our art.
That's right.
We're serving ourselves for sure. And that doesn't matter what your form of art is. Whenever someone, if I go to a convention or whatever, and someone says, "Here, I made this art," I'm like, "Please continue to do this, and please continue to share it."
Mm-hmm.
Because it's such a waste for people. I've seen sketchbooks filled like, no, I don't want to show this to anybody else. Like, you have to. Someone's going to connect with that.
That's right.
And it's going to become their favorite thing that they've ever seen before.
Woo.
Don't hide your art from the world.
Yeah.
The world needs your art. It needs your voice. The last thing the world needs is more of my voice. They need your voice and your voice and your voice, because that's the beautiful cacophony of humanity.
Yeah. But speaking of getting your art out, man, you've been doing music for a long time.
Yeah, dude.
And I think that's something that, as just maybe a casual gamer or somebody who, has played a lot of games, like something they might not know of you. The voiceover thing, what's hard about it is it's so passive.
Yeah.
And so you don't always understand the hard work that's gone into it, or the people behind the scenes. You know what I'm saying? It's kind of like scores in a movie. Like you take the score out and it's missing, but you keep it in there and it just passes you by sometimes. You don't get to appreciate it always. And so when I was talking to you in December, you talked about you doing music first. That became before all this VO stuff, and kind of stumbled into the VO. Can you talk about your music and what you got going on now, and where people I know you did kind of a fundraising thing for it. Was it last year that you kind of had it out there?
Last year, crowdsourcing, good God. Poof. It's hard, man.
It is, but praise God for it, right?
Well, dude,
you'll have to go find a label and talk them into it, and then them give you this money that you got to pay back.
It's the joy of childbirth. It's everything that comes with it.
Yes.
I was, man, it taught me so much. People were incredibly kind. They've been incredibly patient while we've finished this project that is a labor of love for everybody that was in it. And we did this Pledge Music campaign, and people really, when they supported us hard.
Mm-hmm.
And it was incredibly humbling. And I was honored to be able to do that, not only for myself, but also with some of my dearest friends and the most talented people that I could ever possibly work with. And Wayne Miller, who's our producer and is over the course of several years become a very, very dear friend of mine, he was our captain at the helm. And there were several people who independently referred us to the studio. I think I even told Toby about it. It's so rad. It's up in Northern California, Stinson Beach. And it's this off the grid kind of place. Like you can't just like look it up online. You have to be referred to it. And it's beautiful. You're on top of Mount Tamalpais, and you walk out on the deck and you look out over the Pacific Ocean to your left and the Muir Woods to your right, and you make music. And we were up there for 10 days, and there wasn't a sunset that we didn't all take in together, and we ate our meals together, and we slept there, and over the course of 10 days we tracked a record.
Tell me how to get through this. Tell me how to get over this, even part-time.
And the whole point of us doing that is realizing that we're all storytellers, and that's what we've been doing ever since we were walking upright. Is we've been drawing on cave walls and trying to tell people about the woolly mammoth that we killed or whatever.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And we are a species of storytellers. And again, it's like making art. Telling my stories, I chose to do with these people in this way. And there's some very, very deeply personal moments that we share that on this record that I've been talking about this record with other people. I said at one point, every one of us have picked up a pen and we've added to the text.
Yeah, man.
And all of us have been telling a story, but it's been confusing because I didn't want it to be a vanity project. I didn't want it to be another Troy Baker record, because I did that with my previous record, Sitting in the Fire, and I was like, okay, I want this to be more about it's a project. Mm-hmm. It's a bunch of people getting together, because it's not just me. And so we called it Window to the Abbey, which it's a film term So you have your martini, which is your last shot. You have your Abbey, which is your penultimate, and then the anti-penultimate is the window to the Abbey. So it's a kind of a stupid play on words, but it was a track of the record that we did at Sitting on the Fire that was an impromptu jam. And I just sat down at this keyboard and I just hit 3 notes, went dun, dun, dun. And the bass player, Wayne, picks up and starts playing bass, and the guitarist starts, vibing on it. And before you know it, we had this like 4.5 minute jam.
Yes.
And I was like, this is what I want this album to be about, is when I introduce an idea where these talented musicians can take it. And so John Titterington, our keyboardist, was like, well, I just thought we'd call it Project Window to the Abbey. I'm like, whoop, there it is.
Yeah.
And then as we were trying to come up with names for the albums, because I hate naming bands and I hate naming albums.
It's the worst. It's the worst.
It's because you're like, I don't know.
Well, and no idea is good until it's popular.
Well, I'll never forget. We were trying to come up with the name of the band. And I was like, and I think about this. Radiohead.
I know. All of them.
I could have thought Audio Slave. Like, yes, come on, man. It's so simple.
I know. U2.
U2.
Mm-hmm.
That's easy.
Mm-hmm.
So we're sitting there thinking about names for the album. And I was talking to an engineer friend of mine. And I was like, I want some, what are some tape terms, because we really went analog on this record. And he said, well, you've got this. And I was like, yeah, and you got this. And he goes, moving around bias. And I went, whoa, what's that? He goes, oh, you just engineers. I mean, we're moving around bias. We're rolling the tape out. And that's recording, is moving around bias. And especially when we were doing this record, I was like, wow, what a very appropriate term that we need to move around some bias that we have. And I heard this, Sean Hannity was interviewing Ted Koppel, or Ted Koppel was interviewing Sean Hannity. I don't know how it works, but
right.
Sean Hannity asked a question to Ted Koppel. He says, do you think I'm bad for this country? And Ted Koppel says, yes, I do. And you see the two difference, it's like old school and new school. Ted Koppel is stoic and he's
right.
quiet and he's reserved.
Mm-hmm.
And Sean Hannity is what we have right now, which is, just kind of a very animated,
loud and boisterous,
boisterous pundit. And he says, you think I'm bad? You really think I'm bad for the country? He goes, yes, I do. And I'll tell you why. Because you breed a community that would rather have an ideology than to ask questions.
I remember that.
I'm like,
that was not long ago.
No, it was just a few weeks ago. And I was like, that's exactly what we have right now, is that, Twitter is set up in such a way, Instagram is set up in such a way that they know what I like.
Mm-hmm.
And so they will only show me what I like. And Twitter will never make me angry.
Yeah.
And even when it does, it'll only show me, like, even if I looked at comments from other people, it's going to filter based on what it believes I believe. And so we're so insular within our own belief system that we're afraid to question our beliefs because they're so paper thin.
Mm-hmm.
And we know that the second that it meets any kind of adversity, it'll crumble because we're just so scared. And I was reading this quote by Dostoevsky where it was a notoriously just a cruel human being and self-professed Christian, but not a good one by all accounts. But he said that if somebody proved to me that Christ existed outside of the truth, and that in reality the truth existed outside of the Christ, I would remain with the Christ. And that to me is problematic. I heard someone else say that it's not about, we should look for people who are seeking truth, not the ones who claim to have found it. And I believe that, because I believe that this is a process and it's a journey of constantly seeking out truth, because the second that we hold on to something that we believe to be true, then we stop seeking truth. We abandon the journey and the search for truth. And which I don't believe truth is evading us, but I believe that truth is something to be pursued.
Sure.
And that's what Twitter and Instagram and everything does, is that it removes that need to search. We'll bring it to you, and we'll tell you what you believe, and we'll support what you believe.
That's right.
And so we decided to call the album Moving Around Bias, just because I want them to challenge their own beliefs. I want them to challenge and have a conversation, because typically if you're talking to someone who is challenging your beliefs, that's someone who is in some way disparate from you. And whether it be geographically, politically, spiritually, and that kind of goes back to why I call my son Traveler. It's not just about getting on a plane and going somewhere, but I want you to travel outside of your own bias, outside of your own beliefs.
I totally agree with you. It's funny because, as a Christian, there's definitely things I was brought up to believe, and I'm big into apologetics. And somebody was asking me, what are some of the things I study when I go on YouTube? And I say, I always search for videos that say, why was Jesus not the Messiah?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because it definitely, I feel like there has to be a rub there. For me, dude. For me at least, I don't want to put that on everybody, but like for me, there's got to be that rub of like, all right, these people are saying this is what I've grown up believing, and then when I've done my own research, this is what I've found, and then what are they saying? Because I need to know all the different things, because I need to know that I believe what I believe, not just because my mom said believe it.
You don't sharpen a knife with cotton.
Nah, yeah, exactly. Yeah,
you need that wedding stone. I mean, look, C.S. Lewis, one of the greatest apologists of our time, is someone that was constantly breaking down and distilling common beliefs and even his own beliefs in order to challenge them, to make them, to really, what is it that I really, really, really believe?
That's right. That's right.
And I believe that comes to, again, it's like, I just want truth. I just want truth. And if that means that there's a great book called Farewell to Mars that really talks about nationalism and how the whole root of how we got into this thing that, God is a Cowboys fan. And, but we take that to a political place, and that, God is for this country. And it's like, well, you go, 1 mile up and there's no lines, it's just like you, I spent a lot of time in the air, and I love that I have no idea when I'm flying over, there's no demarcation from one state to the next.
That's right.
And I've always loved that perspective that flying gives, where it's like, this is just a ball. It's not flat. It's a ball. spinning, hurtling through space. Seemingly on a a wild course, but it's something that's actually been preordained to go where it is. So
that's awesome.
Man, wow, what a crazy orbit. Speaking of like hurtling through space, we've covered a lot of ground in this thing, man.
I love it.
Covered a lot of ground.
I know. I do want to ask you like 2 questions, and
sure.
They could be short answers, long answers. But you alluded to it actually a little bit earlier, and if you don't want to get into it, that's fine. But if you weren't doing VO and you weren't doing music, it's just something I like to ask people. What do you think you'd be doing?
I mean, directing or writing and directing would be something that I would absolutely throw all my weight into. But if I couldn't be working in either one of these fields, I don't consider myself like an overly intelligent or academic person. However, I do romantically love the position of a teacher.
Yes.
I love sharing something that I'm excited about and that I think is cool or worthy of knowing, and trying to get other people to feel the same way about it. And when I do find that one person that's like, I've never known that before, and I want to know more about these things, that's a cool connection. And to me, that is the whole point of teaching, whether it be calculus or history or science or whatever. I loved having those teachers that were like, this is the coolest thing ever. And
weren't those teachers different?
Amazing.
You always could tell when they were like just cashing a check or loved what they were talking about in the
or
first place.
had to teach this class because they were a football coach and
Exactly. You
had
have to do
to teach
something,
physical
yeah.
science, and they didn't. They learned this 30 seconds before you did. But then you had these other teachers that were like, this is the coolest thing ever, and I would be wrapped with attention. I will always follow passion.
Yes.
And sometimes to a fault. But yeah, I mean, if I couldn't be an actor, if I couldn't be a musician, if that just for some reason, and by the way, especially having a family, the second that this no longer is able to be monetized, I would love to do this. If I can't do this, I'll find, I would go crazy. So I'd find a way to do this. But if I could make my living doing this, then I would, in a heartbeat, I would go do something else. I'll go, I'll be a barista. I'll do whatever it takes to be an Uber driver, just to
keep
take care of my family, to keep it going.
Mm-hmm.
But I would always be scheming about how I could get back into this.
Yeah, no, that's right. That's awesome. Okay, last question, just real quick. Sure. You've played a million characters. Sometimes we get to see your face, sometimes we don't. I feel like there was a Call of Duty where it was pretty much just you. It felt like I was just looking at Troy Baker, and then I feel like on Infamous Second Son, it looks a lot like you. But is there a character that you attached to more, like this is the man I want to be, or this is the kind of person I am, or you know what I'm saying, somewhere that you had a deeper level, because you've been Batman and you've been the Joker and you've been Two-Face and you've been Robin, and so you've played both. You've played the good and the bad. Was there a guy that you were like, this guy's Troy a little bit?
Man, I think that the goal is for that to always be, for me to leave as much of an indelible mark on the characters left on me. And sometimes you're given a character like, Batman or the Joker, and it's like, here are the rails.
Yes.
Now we're going to be a speed train, and let's see how far to the left and the right we can lean. But at the end of the day, don't go off the rails.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
And then there's other words where like, there's no railroad built. This is we're going to go by horseback through terra incognita, and there be Indians in this land.
Yeah.
So like characters like Joel, there's so much about Joel that I wish I was. I want to be that kind of father. That the depth of his love is so vast, it's crippling in the absence of it. And I'm not there yet. Sarah was a young adult. Like she was 12, I think, in the story. And I can't imagine, like every day that, like, there were those 2 days when Traveler was like, it's kind of touchy what's going to happen. And every second that ticked by, we grew closer and more attached to him. And even when, Pam was just pregnant, the first 3 months, I'm like, okay, well, if something happens, then we can start over. And then after we get there, I'm like, there's a life.
This is it. And
then the first time we did a sonogram, his first heartbeat was 163. And the second that I saw him and heard him, and to me, we loved getting the sonograms because that heartbeat was like his hello to us. It was our connection. And I don't know how I could be without him now. And every second that goes by, but
you will not remember life without your children.
No,
I don't remember who Gabe was before I had kids.
And my sister says that, she said really cool. It's that your life begins now, and it doesn't in any way diminish the life that you had before, but you just don't. All you know about yourself is this. I'm like, that's okay. But as far as the characters that I've played, I mean, when I played Delson in Infamous, there was so much of me that was, especially at that time in my life, because Travis Willingham has always been a very fraternal relationship, and he's always been a brother, and especially a big brother, even though he's younger than me.
Mm-hmm.
But in the same way, Sam in Uncharted was the same thing, because that's the relationship that I have with Nolan is you're just breaking balls the entire time, with each other. So I think the goal is, and Nolan says this really well. He goes, don't try to play a cop. I'm playing myself as a cop, just be you.
Interesting.
And where that comes from is really bringing yourself to a place where you go, I am enough.
Mm-hmm.
And when you can accept that, going back to the truth, when you can accept that as a reality and as a truth, then your work and your art becomes more pure and it'll become more simple. I play drums, kind of.
Mm-hmm.
And my first drum kit was this 12-piece double bass, 7 cymbals, crazy drum kit.
Of course. It's got to be.
Maple. It was awesome.
Yeah.
And I was terrible.
Of course.
Until I stripped it down to kick, snare, tom.
That's where it is, baby.
And a hi-hat.
Mm-hmm.
And I learned rudiments, and I actually became a better drummer because I understood that I didn't need all of that. I just needed the fundamentals in order to lay a beat for somebody else.
That's right. That's right.
And that's I think that's what I try to do with a character is I understand that I am enough, and I trust more than I ever have. I trust the writing. I trust my director. And I Richard Burton had a great phrase. Someone said, "Sir Richard, how do you do the acting so well?" And he goes, "It's incredibly easy. I will give you everything. But if you give me nothing, I will take it from you."
Nice.
And I think that's what it's
so
about.
Great.
It's being generous, but understanding at the end of the day, there's a scene we got to make, and one of us has got to make it if we're not going to do it together. So I guess that's my approach.
I love it. Troy, thank you so much, man.
My pleasure, brother. My pleasure anytime.
So this is how it ends. Not with a whisper, but a bang. Slamming doors and broken picture frames. Puffed up pride and called out names. Alright, so go. Pedal your wares on down the road. You'll manufacture love with